Welcome back. Everyway Woman is very honored to host two of the most influential women in the Los Angeles area. In honor of Domestic Violence Month, we have Lieutenant Ibarra. Welcome to the show. And Yvette Lozana. Ladies, pleasure to have you. Please tell us a little bit about what you do.
Well, I'm a lieutenant with the Pasadena Police Department. I've been in law enforcement for 25 years. Currently, I manage our Criminal Investigations Division, detectives. And so within our section, I manage the investigations for homicide, assault, sexual assault, elder abuse, child abuse, and of course a key component of what my investigators do are family-related crimes, which includes domestic violence.
And that kind of brings in Yvette.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm the Director of Intervention Services for Peace Over Violence, and I oversee our emergency response team. We have 68 plus advocates that provide support and services for victims of sexual assault and domestic violence.
So how do you two work together, or do you work together as it relates to crime or domestic violence against women?
Well, and domestic violence isn't gender specific, so I want to make sure we clarify that.
Good.
How we work together is our agencies work together. Pasadena Police Department is very proactive to reach out to several resources in the community, be it Peace Over Violence or Grace Center or Haven House or YWCA. And so they are available to us 24 hours, 7 days a week. And when we get a call of either sexual assault or domestic violence, we refer not only the victims to those resources, but we actually reach out to Peace Over Violence, and they respond to the station, they respond to the hospitals, and they get the opportunity to interface with those victims early on, which is so critical for intervention.
Now, I have a question for you, because I know a lot of people hesitate to make a call in the first place. What constitutes calling in the police, making that call? Because I've heard my neighbors in apartment buildings me arguing. When do I call the police?
If you think anyone may be getting exposed to a violent or dangerous situation, we ask, please call us. In fact, studies have shown only about 20 or 25% of the time when there's incidents of violence are we actually getting notified. I mean, there's a 911 call or someone's calling the general information line.
I think maybe a lot of people as witnesses feel scared to call because they think that the person will know that they're the ones that call. So is it a way to call the police and leave it anonymous, so my neighbor doesn't know I'm the one that's calling when I hear him slapping his children or his wife?
Well, yes, there's two things. One, on the 911 call, it will show where that call has come from.
Okay.
So we'd register a phone number, but you can also ask that you not be identified, and that's critical. They say, I don't want to be identified in this.
Okay.
If it's an emergency, please call 911. If you call the general information number, we may not get that call, and if it's dropped, we don't know where to reach back to provide assistance.
Yvette, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Lieutenant Ibarra, domestic violence, we think of women. How many cases of men do you do intervention for that you see men being abused?
Well, we do provide services to men, and recently we've seen an increase in men reporting domestic violence. And it could be their same-sex relationships or heterosexual relationships, but we actually seen about maybe 2% increase in the past year.
Do you find that men are more hesitant, or it doesn't matter across genders?
I think in both situations, both genders are hesitant to report. There's many issues that may come up. But with regards to men, there's also the shame of being judged by others or the services, or maybe thinking that they might not be able to get services available.
Now, when you come on a call, will you always take one of the people out of the house, one of the participants? Because if you don't take, say if the husband's abusing the wife, and then are you going to take him out of the house? Because what's going to happen when the police leave and he's still there with her?
Well, we separate them so we can hopefully get a statement without being influenced by the other one's presence. But you have to remember, we can't legally remove someone from the home unless they're being arrested.
And now is that where more of the intervention service would come in, Yvette?
Yes, this is where we both work together. Police obviously respond and assess the safety of everyone that's reporting, that's in the home, and the children. And we actually come in as advocates and provide information for the survivors, the victims, and the children, whether it be crisis counseling, resources, connecting or filling out restraining orders, placing them into shelters. We do a lot of that work too, along with other agencies as well. But I think that the collaboration with police and advocacy centers is very important, and this is something that we've been doing for the past 15 years that Peace Over Violence has been in the Pasadena area.
Now, how does a person find out about the resources after they've experienced a domestic violence incident? How do they find out where the shelters are, where to go?
Well, when we get a call and we have either an individual that is going to jail because of a domestic violence and we need to get a restraining order, we will do that. It's called the emergency protective order. But after that, they may need a permanent restraining order, which we bring in the advocates to assist with that. They may need court accompaniment, which we also bring in the advocates so they can develop that relationship.
So do you come in together?
Yes, we can. Well, but they will not come in initially. Of course, it's a public safety issue.
Right.
So we will come in initially, assess what the situation is, and then we bring the advocates, the resources into the environment.
Now, with peace over violence, do you have are you guys on call too?
Yes, we are. We are on call 24/7. We have about 68 plus advocates who are responding. In situations where domestic violence call goes to police officers respond, they assess the situation, and they actually offer the victim if they want to speak to an advocate, and that's where we come in. Then they call us, and then they transfer the survivor victim to the station, then we respond to the station to provide that support for them.
Yvette, how did you get involved with this advocacy? How did this come for you?
I actually, growing up, I witnessed domestic violence,
Okay.
and I think that it's an issue that should be addressed not just in the month of October, Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I think it's an issue that should be discussed every day.
Okay.
Children are impacted by witnessing this type of non-healthy relationships in the home.
How often do the two of you witness children in these matters of domestic violence?
For me, many times, many times.
I would think in every incidence of domestic violence where the children have been a witness, it's impacted no matter what, whether they're impacted emotionally at the age of 5 or 6, or they're impacted at 25 when they're now become the abuser. And so having that intervention isn't just for the victim, it is for the families, and that's what becomes so critical too.
Yvette, I want to go back.
Sure.
You said that you were a witness.
I was a witness.
How has that changed you, or how does that pump your advocacy with it? Because I can tell you're very calm about that. Have you dealt with that? I'm not psychoanalyzing you, but myself being a survivor, what does that do for you?
Well, for any survivor or anyone that has witnessed violence or has experienced any type of trauma in their lives, and it's the healing process. It takes time.
Exactly.
So, and our philosophy is to empower survivors to be independent, and I think that many of the women that are involved in these issues are because they're trying to empower other women to get out of that situation, that no one deserves to be abused or be in an unhealthy relationship. And that is my purpose, and that's what drives me to do what I do.
Amazing.
Now,
Good job.
between you two, do you think that most of the people end up just staying, or do these people actually leave? Because I know you go to all this trouble, you go to arrest them, then you go to counsel them, but then they go right back to the abuser.
They can go right back to the abuser. That is obviously, that's their choice unless they ask us to place them in a shelter. But just because we may have had intervention at the one point, maybe the initial call, doesn't mean that intervention stops, because they will continue to reach out to them. The other thing that happens with this is that we continue with education. Most people think domestic violence is just about the physical act. It is about power and control.
Right.
Well,
And it really is about the younger people understanding. Teenagers are becoming more susceptible to that socially.
it's going
even with
At a younger age. I think it's becoming more influential at a younger age. And
Wow.
you'll find teenagers maybe perpetuating that violence sooner.
even with all this awareness, is it domestic violence increasing, or is there been a decrease?
Well, it depends on who you're asking. Are you asking law enforcement, or are you asking advocacy groups? Because it depends. With law enforcement, sometimes they could say domestic violence calls are decreasing, but that's the calls that are being reported. If you're calling the 24-hour hotline, if you're
Right.
calling other domestic violence agencies, our hotline numbers are up. We have a lot of requests for counseling and assessment and case management services that many survivors are seeking, so it depends.
But part of that, real quick, is this programs like this. And you educate people on what other resources there are, avenues to get out of a bad relationship besides calling law enforcement. We want you to call us. We want to have that intervention. But now that this awareness is becoming about, they realize that there are resources there. And so they're reaching out.
Speaking on those resources, where can women reach out? Is there a hotline number?
There is a National Domestic Violence Hotline, the National
is?
Domestic Violence Hotline, and there's also local domestic violence hotlines as well. One of the numbers local is 213-626-3393, and any survivor, any significant other can call that number, have counselors available who have been trained to provide a needs assessment and connect survivors to resources.
Let me ask you this, though. We're talking about when they're in the mix. What type of education is being done early before dealing with self-esteem with teenagers or teenage girls? Because now you're helping me, Lieutenant Ibarra, when he's beat me up. But there's something about me, maybe, with my self-esteem that I go back. How do you two work together to address that?
It's the issue that Lieutenant Ibarra just mentioned. It's about educating teens. There's a lot of teen dating violence that is happening amongst our youth nowadays. And having organizations collaborate together, like Pasadena Police or any other police department and domestic violence agencies, going to schools.
What do you say to
and
her?
Educate them.
What do you say to her when that young woman walks in? Do you say, he doesn't love you? I mean, what are the
Oh,
terms
not at all.
use?
No, our goal is to empower. We don't want to. We don't want to take that power and control
Right.
and put it on ourselves and tell that person and make them feel less.
Well,
We want to encourage them.
Thank you so much
great.
for your time. We really appreciate this information. We would love to invite the both of you back on our show. This information is vital to all of our viewers. In honor of Domestic Awareness Month, the YWCA in the Pasadena community is partnering to sponsor a week without violence. For more information, please go to the ywca.org.